once came another man.
Style of tall.
Go ahead.
I'll be honest. I played a very high standard. Young superstar. Give some lessons. Determination. When you say best, that's hard to define. Competition was extremely.
Welcome to the Chess Underground. Eccentricities, peculiarities, and theoretical novelties.
Here. And I felt be got inflamed. Felt like that. My style. I felt that sense of my style and skills.
I only think so.
From a distance.
That's a secret.
0 day. Oh, nice. Generating a virtual mating attack. The reflections. Impact. My skills never been in question. Style of tall.
Yeah, so I'm really glad we finally have the Julia Rios on the show because now like the completionist aspect of my personality is complete, right? We had the first half of Chess Feels Pod on the show, JJ, and now we have Julia. So
the top half.
Now with me is the co-host, and yes, the top half.
Right. So now I feel like I don't know. There's something very satisfying about completing that, right?
Who doesn't like top energy?
As a top, I actually really like bottom energy.
Well,
I'm so lost here.
This is the.
It's okay, Pete. We'll show you later.
Can you have both? Is that possible?
Yeah, it can be worse.
Yes, you can. We talk about that. You should listen to episode 8 of Chess Feels. We answer that exact question just for you, Pete.
With me.
Okay, very good. I have to listen
Also,
to episode 8. I don't think I've heard that one yet.
Hashtag real quick. I remember reading something by Akash in response to it, like, wow, I'm a switch or something like that. And I'm like, bro, having a woman, like letting a woman be on top of you once, like does not constitute you being a switch. You know what I'm saying? Like that was just my first thought. I don't know why, but
No, Akash seems confused about that in general. Once Akash and I were chatting on his Twitch stream, and he referred to me in the chat. He was like, "Hey, everyone, go check out Julia Rios's podcast, Chess Feels. She's the bottom half." And I was like, "Whoa, Akash, I can understand that you might not remember, but come on, like, does that feel right to you?" He was like, "I don't know."
that's a good point.
How could you mix that
Not
up?
you. No, for sure, 100%.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Gopal, 2 questions. 1, are you currently at a racetrack? And 2, how far away from your mic are you?
Relatively far. Here, this is better, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
There's some dude outside that's like.
Are you smoking outside, Gopal?
No, not at all. Windows are closed.
Yeah, that's my other question. So Gopal frequently, or used to anyway, I don't know, it's been so long, but frequently took smoke breaks during a chess game.
Yeah.
Does that help you? Like, I was talking about when my booty hits the chair, I immediately get that game face on for chess mode, right? Do you reset when you go and take a smoke break, or like, is that like, what's happening there internally? Is it a thought break? Is it a mental break, or what?
Yeah, something to break the monotony, like what Blumenfeld, his technique was to, write down the move before you play it. Right. And then you just reassess it. And then if you like it, you're good to go. But like the whole point was to break your concentration a little bit, just to avoid like some sort of tunnel vision,
Interesting.
But also, Gopal, I don't know if you're going to say this, but obviously nicotine is a stimulant. So when you take a smoke break, hey, that's my line. I just said that to Gopal recently. But I wouldn't be surprised if it actually really does help.
No, I have to stop. Like I've quit like a few times before, but it's like ultimately it's no good. You're cutting off oxygen in your brain. But I will say this, as somebody, Pete, like you'll totally like vibe with this. I want to spend as little time at the chess tournament as possible. So like me having a smoke break is me getting the mother away from this terrible place.
It's interesting you mentioned that because, yeah, I mean, you're right. So like why is that the case? Why are we interested in this game where we want to spend as little time at the actual tournament as we possibly can? What's the draw or the appeal there? Like, I want to do this hobby and get really good at it and spend like hours and hours of my life practicing and improving.
And have very obnoxious opinions on
about this hobby. Right. Yes. And share them with the world. But yet, when it comes to like going to the actual competition, I want to be there like as little time as humanly possible. What's that about? Can I call you Dr. Julia? Are you Dr. Julia now?
It's an interesting question. I did defend my PhD dissertation in June this year. But technically, since I am a clinical PhD student, they don't actually award us our doctorate until we finish our clinical residency or our internship. So that's what I'm doing this year. I'm doing clinical work full time. So even though I've already completed everything I need for the PhD, I won't actually have it in my hands until May 2023. So no doctor.
So this is kind of like the equivalent of like a candidate master title or something.
No, 'cause that's not.
Yeah.
No, that's a trick question, Julia. Not a title. It's not a title.
But I could put it in my Twitter bio, and who would double check me?
Wait, would you put CM Julia Rios or Dr. Julia Rios in your Twitter bio?
Oh God.
Good question. I'd probably put Dr. Julia Rios, comma PhD, comma GM.
Very nice.
Or Gopal Menon.
For a while, I had CEO of Chess Fields in my bio to see if anyone, including JJ, would notice, and no one said anything to me. So I realized you can actually just write anything in there.
I think that goes for like all of Twitter, though, right? You can just write anything in there.
All of the internet, maybe, actually.
It's okay. I'll play doctor later. But anyway, let us go back to this chess tournament subject.
Yeah, we need to know. So what is that? What is that about? Why do we show up for, dedicate a lot of time and energy to this this event? It's an event, right? We choose to attend the event. It's not compulsory. And yet we want to be like actually physically there, or at least for me and obviously Gopal, we want to be there as little as humanly possible.
So I actually got a really good rationale for this, like from or explanation from one of the parents of one of my students. And keep in mind, like, that's also another reason, right? You want to avoid like your students and their parents because you don't really like care about their games while they're going on. You have to be like a bird of prey, so to speak, when you're at a chess tournament. But I
also think, no, that's a very good point. I also think that like there's an element where there's really nothing you can do to like help them in the middle of an event too. And I think they don't understand that, Like they want to come ask you a bunch of questions, but it's like, now there's nothing I can do to help you at this moment. Did we lose Gopal?
No. So what were you going to say? You also think what?
Oh, there's an element of like, you can't really help them in that moment either. You know what I mean? Like you help them beforehand, you help them with the preparation, but during the event, it's almost better if they just view you as like a ghost where, you just have to focus 100%. On you and play. Yeah.
I mean, people have called me a phantom the way I disappear in and out of the tournament hall, which I like. We'll maybe unpack that in a second. But one of the parents of my students, now somebody who I wouldn't try to avoid, one of the very few people, he said, well, dude, it's like you're the hot girl at the bar. And I'm like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Like,
because everyone wants your attention.
Right. Or yeah, because you're one of the higher rated players, right? Everybody wants to talk to you or like, some like, I don't know, low rated players trying to tell me about their game. And like with vague descriptions like, yeah, so he took with G and then I pushed F. Like, shut up. Who cares?
We're gonna have to edit like every sentence. Gopal.
Gopal, is that what you think hot girls are thinking at the bar when literally any person comes up and tries to talk to them?
Yes.
The hot girl is thinking, I don't care whether you took with a G or E.
Well, most men in my experience don't actually know where the G pawn is, so
I got you. That actually makes a ton of sense.
I know where the G pawn is, and I would also say it's the best pawn to use as your secret queen. I get silence because nobody knows what the heck I'm talking about.
I'm thinking like there's that game Capped Pawn. That's like when they used to give odds in chess games. You had to like deliver mate with that piece or whatever.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, Secret Queen is just one of the pawns at the start is secretly a queen. And you don't have to tell your opponent. And you just like write it down on a piece of paper so you can prove you're not just like changing it on the fly.
Pete, are you ever going to tell me what 24 game chess is, or?
Oh, so yeah. So every month, Paul and I, we have a segment like kind of at the end where we match up like two hypothetical figures they could be real or fake, like fictional or real people in a 24 game chess match. And we discuss who we think would win.
Mm.
And this month, Gopal has a suggestion that it was from one of his students that
it's
I really
from Kevin Skull.
From Kevin?
From Kevin Skull.
Fisticuffs. Edit that part out.
Oh, okay. Fisticuffs.
From Dr. Skull.
Because Julia knows.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. I actually like the suggestion. I think it would be fun, particularly because it gives both Gopal and I a chance to rant about the Big Lebowski, which...
Oh yeah, have you seen this? So yeah, what did he say? The Big Lebowski versus whom?
It was the dude from Big Lebowski versus Ricky Bobby.
That is kind of funny,
right? Like I think that would be a fun matchup.
The Big Lebowski.
What, Gopal?
Have you seen this movie? The Big Lebowski?
Yes, of course.
What do you think about it?
I've seen both these movies, believe it or not.
What do you think about The Big Lebowski?
Oh, just as a movie? I mean, I really liked it when I was 20.
Exactly. Exactly.
I haven't thought about it in 5 years, but...
Exactly.
And the dude abides? Is that like one of the Big Lebowski movies?
Fucking Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's one of the things.
Gopal, you're making our editing job so difficult.
Sorry, I'm just so influenced by the Chess Fields podcast right now.
I understand. It's tough to get out of that vibe, right? We have one of the two chess feelers on with us.
Having a bad day, we should have a saying like you could snap into a Stouffer's.
I'll be extra wholesome, Pete, to cancel out Gopal's riffraff.
Okay. Wholesome starting now. Let's go.
Okay. Not sure how that works, but okay. Sounds good, Gopal.
It's like sitting your butt at the chessboard, Pete. You just shift into
you become extra wholesome the moment you sit down.
At my therapy desk, yeah.
Actually, I would say nothing is more wholesome than the idea of snapping into a Stouffer's, right? Is that what Gopal said? Stouffer's?
It's very like family, family, whatever the word
right,
is.
like just hearing the name Stouffer's, you picture like polo shirts like near an oven on Thanksgiving or something.
I picture
with like
how great America is.
Totally.
We're so free.
Some like red and orange leaf wreath over
that warm, loving nuclear family, definitely.
Yeah.
Something that definitely has not been co-opted by any untoward websites, for sure.
Ever.
And how cis and straight, like we all are,
So I want to get back. I think there's an interesting question here. No, seriously, I what we were talking about earlier, like why do we do this where we go to a tournament, we dedicate all this time to like getting better at chess, then we go play a tournament, we show up, and the first thought that enters our head is like, we don't want to be here. Is it really just like I guess for lack of a better term, like the hot girl at the bar syndrome?
Julia, your thoughts?
Right. So
is that even a thing?
My first reaction would be, wouldn't that make you want to go to the tournament? Right? Like, don't hot girls go to the bar to kind of be admired and try to find the other hottest?
Not myself being a hot girl, I don't know.
Me also not being a hot girl, I don't know.
Being a hot girl, I like to be left the hell alone.
So do I.
That kind of sounds right, like intuitively. I think Gopal's take sounds right.
I mean, it's got to be exhausting being a hot girl. Well, it is being one,
Right. I mean, that is how I feel when I go to the bar. I only go to the bar with my friends, and then I only want to talk to my friends. And maybe that is kind of how I feel about chess. So obviously I haven't played in over the board tournaments like you guys have. But I feel like a lot of my aversion to playing a lot of in person over the board is honestly kind of the discomfort that I imagine being in that setting, because everyone describes it like you guys as terrible. I haven't really heard anyone say anything that's really encouraged me to spend more time in that space.
I wonder if that's like a particularly American phenomenon, like our OTB tournaments elsewhere in the world, like that unenjoyable to attend. I will say there have been like some over the board tournaments here and there that I have enjoyed going to.
Sure. And
what has made those feel more enjoyable for you, Pete?
Well, honestly, all the ones that came to the top of my head were very small events. They were like round robins, like 6 or 8 player round robin.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's just like I don't.
As opposed to a Swiss.
Yeah, as opposed to like a large open. Right, exactly. Where there's like 800 people in the same room.
Oh God, and all the parents.
Literally my nightmare.
Over the pairing sheets for hours on end, even though nothing changed.
Everybody's right on top of one another. Yeah. And there's like delays, and it feels like when you're playing in one of those events, it feels like the round never starts on time when you want it to, like when you're like ready and feel sharp. And it always starts on time, like when you're running late, like when your last game just finished and you have to like go get food real quick before the next round. Well,
I was going to say that's like part of the really unpleasant experience of the American Swiss, right? There are so many rounds crammed into a given day, right? Or there could be. And that's why I thought it was a really interesting point that you brought up, like, is that a uniquely American phenomenon?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like Europeans like disenjoy. Is that a word? I just invented a word. Do not enjoy? Unenjoy? Whatever. It doesn't look like they're having a particularly bad time when you see them playing. Maybe it's just the miracle of photography.
Or maybe it's that they have a lot of good Stouffer's marketing executives for their nuclear chess families.
They have free lasagna at every tournament hall.
In Europe, is that a thing?
Free lasagna?
Come play chess in Europe, free lasagna at every tournament hall. Free Stouffer's lasagna at every tournament hall.
Every person in Europe listening right now is having the same cringe moment that you were describing earlier, Pete.
Oh my gosh, you're right. They are.
Yes. Well, it's okay. They're just not used to the wholesome family goodness of a Stouffer's meal.
I really don't know how this Stouffer's joke
where did it come from?
Exploded the way that it has. Okay, this is where it came from. It came from a joke that JJ and I were making about the Chessable staff. Oh my God, let me try to remember. Oh, okay, I'm not going to.
Chessable, correct me if I'm wrong, but Chessable sponsors Chess Fields, right? Is that correct?
Somehow, yes.
Okay. You got to get Stouffer's on that bandwagon too.
We're really trying. We're not trying that hard and we're not doing a very good job, but we are tweeting the word Stouffer's a lot.
Gopal and I were trying to get Vitamix brand as a sponsor. We're a really big fan of their high performance blenders. I don't know if you've ever used one of those.
Oh, I actually own a high performance Vitamix and use it on a near daily basis in my home.
You can blend like almost anything with those.
Here, I'm sending you the meme that it was based off of. It was a meme that...
No, I know the meme. JJ's already sent me the meme. Don't send it to me, Gopal. I don't want to look at it right now. Of
course. Why?
She's in her work office, Gopal. You can't send her memes like that.
Hey, Pete, do you remember the one that... I can't find it anymore, but we were like in fits with this one. It was like, close your Chipotle Mexican grill hole reactionary.
Why are those so funny? So basically, there was a whole series of
capitalism of the font.
Yes, there was a whole series of memes where basically it was taking like a phrase like close your pie hole or whatever, but they were just slapping like a logo of a company, usually like a chain restaurant on there for like no reason, and it was really funny for some reason. I don't know what made that so entertaining.
I feel like Stouffer's would actually lend itself really well to that meme.
Close your Stouffer's hole.
I did.
Close your Stouffer's frozen lasagna hole reactionary.
Yeah.
In line with another meme format, I did text JJ this morning and said, with no context, she feels up my chest until I stow for her lasagna. And
Nice.
JJ really enjoyed that, but I was too shy to tweet that in public. There's something about Stofers that's inherently funny.
I actually completely agree. Yeah.
I do 100%.
Why? What is so entertaining about like Stofers as a concept? Because it represents this like weird like version of Americana or something. I don't know.
And also I think there's something about Stofers that, I don't know, maybe this is just me. Okay, this is not objective fact. And anyone who knows me listening to this is going to immediately recognize my bias. But there's something about Stofers that to me is so inherently disgusting. Like it just grosses me out. But I don't know.
What's wrong with it? It's just like pre-made frozen like ground meat in a box.
Yeah, Julia, what about that?
That you can just like what's wrong with that? You don't like your pre-made frozen ground meat in a box that you can take out and microwave and eat in like 3 minutes?
You know,
it doesn't sound appealing.
Perfect for the American Swiss tournament.
Exactly. There's something about it that's so hedonic. I don't know. It's just funny, and we all know it.
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
I got to tell this story, and then I just want you guys to imagine at the proper moment replacing this with Stouffer's frozen lasagna, TM. Okay, so we're at the U.S. I think back then it was called the Amateur Team Midwest or something. It wasn't called Amateur Team North. Maybe it was. I don't know. We're at the U.S. Amateur Team in Chicago, and our team is kind of standing around. It's maybe like 5 minutes before the start of the next round. We've all been done for a while.
Oh, no.
And this guy comes out from the playing hall having just finished his game. And he secured the draw. So that was enough for his team to win 2.5 and 1.5. And he's like really like excited and nervous. I don't know how to describe it other than just like, that feeling you get almost like you're on like a high or something, right? After you win a game or you've done what you were trying to achieve. You're kind of jittery and you've got the shakes or whatever. And so he comes out and his whole team is there. They're kind of like slapping him on the back and saying, "Hey, great job holding the draw," whatever. And one of his teammates, and first of all, he's got his like shirt tucked in. Okay. I'm trying to set the scene here. He's got like white, like shin high socks into his Reeboks, and like some khaki shorts and so his teammates are like, "Well, hey, Todd, do you want to go get some lunch?" I don't know the guy's name. I'm just using Todd because that sounds better. Should we go get some lunch before the next game? And he looks at his teammate like his teammate is insane and has just suggested like raiding the Bastille or something. Okay. And he's like, "Lunch? Oh, by golly, we've only got time for an apple." And he like hikes his shorts like almost up, like as he's saying it, he
pull his
like
pants up for that.
Yes, he grabs the top of his khaki shorts and like pulls them up like almost to his nipples as he exclaims this with fury at his teammate. And his teammate is just like, he has that look, like deer in the headlights look, like what just happened. And all four of us are standing there watching the situation, trying as hard as we can not to laugh out loud. That would have been the perfect moment for we've only got time for a Stouffer's frozen lasagna.
We only have time to eat an entire family-sized Stouffer's lasagna.
We can microwave it in the room. The room has a microwave, guys. We can just go up there and microwave it and get back down here for the next round. So actually, in a future year, our team name for the Midwest Amateur Team or North Amateur Team, whatever they changed it to, our team name in a future year was "We Only Have Time for an Apple."
That's so funny.
Yeah. And then nobody got it except us, and that's all that mattered.
That's the best kind of joke. Oh, you guys will like this team name. JJ and I were kind of spitballing the other day, and this was right in the wake of the Chessentials podcast ranking that came out. Congratulations, guys!
Congratulations, fellow award-winning syndicated podcast host.
Yeah, and if you don't remember those group rankings, this is Group A right here.
Oh, that's true. Yes, we have
Yeah.
three persons from Group A.
So JJ and I were planning. We gotta play USAT North and just with Gopal and beat Group A. So Pete, I think you might have to join us as well.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's so vague. No one will know but us.
No, yeah, no one would get that. That's a good point. That would be a fun team too, actually.
I was sharing I was sharing the results of that blog post with my partner, and he was so confused. He was like, "Isn't perpetual chess the really good professional one with that guy you've been listening to for years?" And I was like, "Yep, his name right next to ours, baby."
It's proof that you were Ben Johnson, and so am I.
We are Ben Johnson.
JJ's
Yeah.
not.
It's interesting. When we first started doing podcasts from US Chess, it was like 3 years ago now, maybe longer. And let me think about that. 4 years ago almost.
Wow.
And there weren't very many podcasts out. And I remember Dan Lucas, our communications director, he approached me and asked if I'd be interested in doing one. And I was like, how do you make a chess podcast, right? Like, you can't show moves, you can't show a board.
I know.
And so I was thinking, like, what makes an interesting? How do you talk about chess in an interesting way? How do you speak about it in an interesting way? And fortunately, I know Gopal, so that like made life a lot easier.
Aw.
I like struggled through 3 seasons, and then I brought Gopal on for a few months, and everybody started loving the show.
Who can resist Gopal Menon? Not I.
Nice.
So Gopal,
Yes.
we were supposed to give you a therapy session today. How are you feeling? Do you feel therapized?
Yeah, just a heads up, like if I feel a little like I'm shutting down,
You had your Stofers and it's settling in.
Well, no, I've developed some sort of trust issues due to a few non-sexual incidents that occurred when I was a child. So let's just in case I shut down, like I start making the Windows shutdown noise, just take that with a grain of salt.
I know, Gopal, you've already admitted to me and JJ on our podcast that your 2 modes of response are shutting down or shutting down again, but in red.
Oh, yes. Did I say that?
Yeah, you absolutely did.
Oh, that's why I'm such a cute boy.
Well, I'll do my
That's-
best, Gopal, to open you back up.
Thanks. Let's do it.
I would say that's surprising to me because normally I also see another mode of Gopal, which is just like extreme extrovert Gopal.
Unhinged.
Yes, right. Yeah. So it's interesting that shutdown and shutdown in red were what you went with.
Only during times of conflict, Pete.
No extreme extrovert.
No.
Kind of like those animals in the wild that have like the defense mechanism of like throwing their gigantic feathers to the air or whatever.
It's interesting you bring that up. One of my like openers on those dating app thingies was like to always give like animal facts. Like Pete, you've seen some of those, like the ones about possums before possums became like fashionable.
Wait, possums are fashionable?
Yes, but that's
According to my wife, I live under a rock, so like I'm like way behind on all of this stuff.
But
So
anyway,
possums are fashionable, and so is tucking in your shirt now, right?
and Stouffer's lasagna apparently.
Stouffer's
But
lasagna.
anyway,
You can tuck your shirt in, but only if you're wearing khakis and they're pulled up almost to your nipples. Is that right, Pete?
to your nipples. Yes.
I don't write the rules. I just report.
I just
report on what I see.
I just observe the fashion rules at chess tournaments for some reason and copy them rigidly.
Well, here, before we get back to therapy, I just have to finish this thought hashtag real quick. So one of my least successful openers with regards to animal facts on dating apps was the fact that quokka, are you guys familiar with quokka?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that was also
So-
my nickname in college.
Right. They throw their, is it because you throw your young while evading predators as a means of self-defense?
I actually have no idea where that came from. So They do that?
Yes, they do.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, here you go, eat my babies.
I mean, also, I don't know.
Survival
why.
instinct.
Yeah, that's fair.
I kind of, I could see why that's probably one of my least successful ones, but whatever, it's something different. Like, what am I supposed to say to you? Hi? Like, no.
So speaking of fashion, I know, so chess feels like they have like some kind of interesting chess t-shirts and stuff, right? But here's my question though. Do any of you guys own like and I don't want to like poo-poo on the chess feels t-shirts, but like a legit chess t-shirt, meaning like one that you got from like a chess tournament in like 2005 or something, Dead silence.
I was in 5th grade in 2005.
I have chess t-shirts from when I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
One of them, my favorite one, has a picture of a knight on it. And the knight, at various places on the knight, is a different, very bright color. So like it starts off as like bright red. And by the time you get to the bottom, it's like neon green, and it goes through all the different phases, like yellow, orange, whatever, and blue and all those other colors. And it says wild horses on it. It's probably one of my favorite t-shirts ever.
That's amazing.
And I think it's from the like Central Illinois grade school championship, like 1997 or whatever.
That's amazing, Pete. I feel like I would have also held on to that type of apparel, but I didn't start playing chess until I was a little bit older than 11.
So you missed out on all of the really cool like chess t-shirts.
I did. But along those same lines, the oldest t-shirt that I own and still wear regularly, it's in my normal rotation, is from 1st grade when my dad took me to a Spice Girls concert and bought me the t-shirts that are adult sizes. So he got me like the smallest one, but it still went down past my knees and I just loved it. And now it fits me great. So
wow, that is actually super impressive. I thought I had like some very old pieces of clothing in my closet. I was like, okay, I'm gonna win this one hands down. But I don't have anything. I have some from like high school, which for me was like 20 years ago, that I still wear.
See, that's impressive.
See, my philosophy, like these days, my wardrobe is basically like I wear all black, especially on days that I'm going to a chess tournament or a pool tournament. But Pete and we devised this strategy because we want to dress as if we're attending a funeral for our opponents.
Okay.
But also, like when I have a black shirt on, just as like my old roommate would say, it's almost like I have a shirt on, leave me alone. You know what I mean?
Because it's black, go Paul.
Well, because it's just a shirt and it doesn't have anything on it.
Right. It's like there's nothing for you to chat with me about.
Right. Exactly.
I feel
like to read and react to.
I feel like when I wear all black, it comes off as kind of like emo goth chick. Then there's still fodder for too much conversation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But you could still be fetishized like that, huh?
Yeah, I can't win.
Yeah. No, seriously. Tell me about it. I guess, yeah, people don't think I have an emo phase, maybe because I'm brown, but little do they know.
No, you are so emo. Who would not be able to see that immediately?
I don't know.
Pete, when was your emo phase?
Well, one of the shirts that I still have from high school is an Insane Clown Posse shirt that I got at a concert.
Amazing.
I don't know if you know them.
Pete, that's amazing. Okay, who doesn't know ICP?
I don't know. There's probably some people out there.
We would have to immediately end the recording. That would be unacceptable.
So they actually came and played in Peoria at this old theater called the Madison, which is like this. I mean, I don't know how to describe it unless you're there. It's just like
it was magical.
A madhouse. Yeah.
Had to be there.
So I guess that was probably as close as I got to an emo phase.
Can I ask you, Pete, what chess openings were you partial to during your most emo phase? Are there emo chess openings?
Oh, that's a fantastic question.
Thank you.
Well, at that time I was playing I was still playing King Pawn at that time. So I
you
would
were a
play.
close Sicilian player, huh?
No, I was an open Sicilian player. So I would play directly into the open Sicilian with white. Although I knew like almost no theory. So my way of handling at that time I would have been rated like 15 or 1600 and I knew no theory. So all I knew was you go e4, c5, knight f3, they do whatever. d4, you hope they take it. You take back with the knight.
You hope they take it.
Right. Then you bring out your other knight, you bring out your white square bishop and you castle and then you go from there.
Pete, that is amazing. That is so likable. What an endearing way to play chess. I feel like you've already won me over. That's incredible.
That was my white opening repertoire against Sicilian. Against e4, e5, I played, of course, the Scotch Gambit.
Of course.
Although every now and then I would play King's Gambit because one of my first ever chess teachers, Mike Leali from Peoria, who, by the way, still plays King's Gambit to this day in almost every game. He played King's Gambit, so I would sometimes play King's Gambit.
Natch.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting for an emo phase, eh?
I mean, like I said, that's as close as I got to an emo phase.
I think it fits that flavor of emo, ICP. Yeah. Something that's a little more, I don't know.
I think about it.
Male.
I think about it at that time, like grunge music was really big. So like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, like Soundgarden, like that. Those groups, if you like go back and listen to the music, they're a lot more emo than they like purported to be at the time.
Oh, for sure.
Like they wanted to be like these rockers, but they were actually like pretty emo. So maybe that was my emo phase. But my openings were the same then anyway. My openings basically didn't change until my freshman year of college. So I played e4 and just like make it up after e4. So you move the pawn to e4 and then you just make it up after that.
Amazing.
I played that until I was 18. And then when I was 18, I went to college and I started learning like real openings.
Okay, I'm stealing that from you, Pete. From now on, when people ask me what opening I play, I'm going to say verbatim e4, and then I just make it up.
I mean, honestly, that's what I did. I didn't really study any theory. I knew like and with black, that's not true. With black, I played the Slav. And I don't know why. I just like found it randomly in like the MCO like second edition from like 1988 or whatever. And I was like, oh, this opening looks like it has a cool name against the queen pawn. I'll play the Slav.
But with like semi-Slav with e6, dc4, or
Go Paul. This is way too advanced for me.
He just told you he knew no theory. Go Paul.
Here's how the Slav went for me.
What you do on move 4?
Yeah, how did it go for you, Pete?
Here's how the Slav went for me. d4, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, knight f6. Look and see what they do. And then if it looks like you can do it, I just move my light square bishop out somewhere. Like,
oh, no.
Right, exactly. That was the level of my opening knowledge back in 1998.
So if you play queen c2, you're kind of screwed there, eh?
Well, I mean, then if they do queen c2, then I might do like g6 or something.
Go Palm, be nice.
I know.
And my black opening actually was probably the opening that I knew the best was the dragon. So I played the dragon.
Pete, I was about to say that. I wish I'd beat you to it. When you said Slav, I was literally going to say, Pete, I thought you were going to say the dragon, because the dragon to me feels like the black counterpart of King's Gambit. They have the same flavor to me.
Yeah, and my whole goal whenever I played the dragon was just to sacrifice something on c3 or b2. It's like every move that I would make, every move that I would make in the opening, you would see like, okay, that move is trying to line up a sacrifice on c3 or b2. Like if you go back and look at the games.
Have you guys? So like, I find that really interesting because the dragon was definitely my emo defensive choice when I was in high school, and arguably maybe at my peak emo youth. But I believe I was really influenced by the Chris Ward books. Do you remember that red book, Winning with the Sicilian Dragon? I think when you were in high school, they were on like maybe edition 1 or 2. I'm
trying to remember if I read any opening book whatsoever other than the
MCO edition.
Besides MCO,
1988.
I don't think I did.
Swag.
I think that was the only opening book that I read.
I got you. I think
I remember
the Slav one, Pete.
Go Paul, you'll really know the Slav was in that MCO. You'll really get a kick out of this story.
Oh, you said
Gopal.
MCO. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, Gopal will enjoy this one. So I remember I was playing in a Chicago Open, probably 1998-ish, and I was like 15, and I was rated about 1500, and in the final round, I was winning my section. I don't remember. I think it was I might have even been lower rated than 1500. I think it was the under 1400 section.
Nice.
So I was like 13 something rated. And I was winning the section. I had I was tied for first. I think I had 6 out of 6 and the other guy had 6 out of 6. And if we draw, we split first place money. And I had seen games that he played in earlier rounds, and I saw that he was opening every game with black with pawn to g6 on the first move. So to prepare, I was like, I don't know what this pawn g6 on move 1 is. Like, shouldn't you play c5 first and play a dragon like a normal human being?
Yeah.
And so to prepare, what I did is I went and I found my copy of the MCO that I had brought with me. And I just looked up g6 on move 1, and I was like, oh, this opening is called the modern defense. And then modern or robot defense, I think they called it. And then I looked up some random line, and I was just trying to find something that looked kind of interesting. And I remember the line that I settled on it involved playing pawn to h4 on move 6. I was like, yes, that is the one I'm going to try to play.
Okay, so bishop e3, f3.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
I know, Gopal, you have a flirtatious past with the modern.
Absolutely. That's the verse in me.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess maybe during my I think that was really the start of my adult emo phase when I started playing the modern. What about
very
you,
alt.
Julia? What is, in your professional opinion, what are some some signs opening wise? That
someone's going through a phase.
Yeah.
Well, I just think that something that we've started to do, which is very key to this conversation, is we really need to be distinguishing between the different types of emo. So I'm glad, Pete, that you already kind of touched on that. Nirvana emo was very different than My Chemical Romance emo. My flavor of emo was I was kind of like a Bright Eyes emo.
Oh, same. Yeah, I've been through that phase.
Yeah, I was like a slow, sad emo. I never really got into, Fall Out Boy or AFI or all of those sort of quintessential emo bands.
Right.
I was like a Pearl Jam Yieldy emo.
That's not really emo.
Have you listened to Yield?
ICP was successful.
In the Depths of Your Sorrow?
Oh, no, Yield is that's fine. I just hate Pearl Jam. What about Elliott Smith?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Elliott Smith, for sure. Big Elliott Smith fan.
Same. Those were the days. So yeah, what openings kind of fit into to me, that is really kind of a slower, sadder, truly kind of depressive emo. It feels different, right, than Dragon or King's Gambit. I'm not totally sure.
So I remember when I was playing against D4 when I was in my Bright Eyes emo phase in high school was it was super fashionable before Topalov started slaying as white. The Queen's Indian is black. Nowadays, again, it's kind of in a some people would say it's in a slight crisis because of G3 still being critical on move 4. But I mean that the Queen's Indian definitely has certain emo vibes, as rich of an opening as it could be. But
I have a question, and I'll answer it to start to give you guys an idea. What is your favorite opening phase, personally, for your life? It's we all go through phases where we experiment or we play different things, or maybe our favorite opening phase is where we played our main repertoire and we're extremely successful with it, right? Mm-hmm. Mine, definitely, hands down, the most fun I ever had in the opening was when I achieved the original Life Master title. So, at that point, you get a floor. You get a floor of 2,200. When you get the original Life Master title, you have to play 300 games over 2,200 rating, and then you're floored at 2,200. Well, I was like rated 2208 when I got my 300th game. So like I didn't care. Like no matter what I do, no matter what happens, the worst that can happen to me is I'll lose 8 rating points. Like whoop-de-doo, right? So I just figured at that juncture, I was like, I'm going to play whatever the heck I want because like, who cares? And what I did is I started copying the repertoire of this guy named Wayne Zimmerly. So Wayne is a longtime friend. He's from the Peoria area. And he basically doesn't really like care at all about openings. He kind of invents his own openings. A good example of the Waynish would be playing the Polish. So b4 on move 1, pawn b4. And then if they attack the pawn in any way, so like if they play e5 to attack the pawn, or if they play a5 to attack the pawn, or whatever they do, knight c6 to attack the pawn, you just push it again to b5. So that's the Waynish opening.
So step 1 is to maintain the Polish pawn.
Right. Maintain the Polish pawn at all costs.
At all costs. I love it.
And then if you play b4, so let's say you play b4, e5, b5, and then they attack it with like c6 or something, then you guard it with a4 or c4. And you just keep that pawn.
I'm immediately sold. I might try that later tonight.
It's super fun.
I'll show you the version that Jeffrey Zhang has used in Blitz. And like you could also do it as black. That's always what kind of intrigued me, that Wayne never pieced together that you could do the same thing as black.
He did. He did sometimes.
E4,
if you played
E6,
if you played d4, he would play b5. But if you played e4, he would play something else.
Yeah, see, that's, if you're a real degen, you gotta commit to the bit.
Wayne had some rules for the opening too, and I followed the rules religiously when I played it.
Like,
So
yeah, you must pawn storm.
His rules were you never castle, and you never move your d pawn. So you leave d2, e3, f2 like as your little king fortress, and then you just throw your g and h pawns at their king, and you hope it works out.
That immediately, Pete, sounds amazing. That sounds up my alley. That sounds like how I want to play chess. You need to put me in touch with this man. What's his name, Wayne?
Wayne is like a mendicant philosopher roaming the earth. I can probably get in touch with him. Maybe
I need a lesson.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll reach out to him via Sparrow.
Honestly, what else is there to know? You just gave me the secret sauce.
That's pretty much all you need to know.
Yeah.
Wayne also had another opening that I copied during this same period. So his other opening, this was his more solid opening, according to Wayne.
I'm so excited.
He would play d4 on move 1. Okay, d4. And then against any response, d4, his next move would be queen d3. Now, the one exception would be if they play c5 or e5. He said, because then you might have to move the queen twice. So if you go d4, c5.
And we can't do that.
Right, they take and you have to take with the queen.
Well, you could. Like after e5, queen d3, e4, queen d4, you actually have literally a Scandinavian defense with reverse colors, but no extra tempo for white. So it's actually like you literally are playing the black side. Like my article on time loss in the opening.
What he would do, and as I recall, the way he described it was a matter of feel. Is he would either take the pawn c5 or e5 and then play queen d3, or he would push his d pawn and then play queen d3. So it was d4 queen d3, with one caveat. Against c5 or e5, it was d4 c5 e5. You take or push, and then your next move is queen d3 no matter what. And the way he would play it is he would go queen d3, knight c3, bishop, the dark square bishop goes out somewhere, and castle queenside immediately.
I thought he did castle. What happened to the no? Well,
castle? This is not the Polish. This is not the Waynish Polish.
Oh, okay. So
this is more solid. This is more solid.
Oh, Pete, I totally forgot that this was the solid one. Okay, let me write this all down.
Yeah. There you go. Now you know how to play this entire repertoire. Sick. So unfortunately, what happened was I actually won a bunch of games playing this repertoire, and then my rating. Right, but then my rating got high enough to the point where I was like, I should probably start playing seriously again because I don't want to drop all the way back down to 2200 again. I was like 2240 or whatever.
So then what did you switch to?
I don't even remember. I think I started playing the English, which is a really weird thing for me. Smyslov King's Indian, English, yeah, that sort of thing.
I've really tried with the English, Pete, and every time I start to study it again and play it, the little JJ negs me and is like, don't play the English. It's not for you. So I haven't really gotten to see what I can do with c4.
Yeah, why play what drew you to the English? I also think that was definitely in my emo phase for sure.
Yeah, I know exactly what drew me to the English, Gopal, was that I just hated playing the Sicilian as white. And this is how you and I ended up in this conversation about playing open Sicilians, because all I really played against Sicilians for a long time was c3. And I just hate those games. It's not the character of play I really like in chess.
Absolutely.
So I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I like against c5. But, our recent conversation, Gopal, made me feel more excited about some ideas. And I really do just have to get over this hump, because apparently I'm not allowed to totally switch from e4 to c4 just because I hate c5. That's what JJ told me.
E4, C5, B4, problem solved.
Yeah, or
You can't say that to me because I'll do it.
Do it. It's actually not bad. Like, it's
Don't
pretty
neg me
solid.
for a3, Gopal. I think that there's something to it.
Why
No,
play
no,
A3
there
when you
is.
can play B4?
No,
right away?
there is. But if you care about your long-term development, you should just bite. You have to bite the bullet at some point. But
E4,
you'll find
C5,
something you
B4.
like.
Pete, I'm
takes A3.
sold.
Then you
I wrote
play
it. I
A3.
wrote it down.
Yeah, you can play
2B,
A3 a move
2B4.
later. Right, Gopal? Just play A3 a move later after B4.
After you commit to b4 already, just plan
Right.
all your moves after that around it.
Right.
I love it. Pete, I'm sold.
Well, yeah. I mean, spoken like a true adult improver.
How
anyway,
dare
so-
you? Who said I'm
this is-
improving? I've been plateaued for like a year.
Oh, I wasn't talking about you. But this is actually like
I only improve when I play Gopal. I haven't played for a long time.
Yeah.
Although I
crossed
did just
1,000
this, like,
in rapid.
you know what? Just this last week, I achieved my highest ever chess.com blitz rating. And I've been playing on chess.com for, like, I don't know, since they started. What
Nice.
is that, almost 20 years too? So I guess I am an adult improver, because at the age of 39, I reached my highest ever rating.
You definitely are, my friend. I mean
What's
that
wrong with
the
me?
worst-
Flag.
Can I start being an adult regressor? How do I do that?
You just put that in your Twitter
After seeing
bio.
Twitter, yeah. Oh, that's a great thing. We should start.
Adult regressor.
But it's really funny. Like, there are a couple of things I want to touch on. So, like, Julia, what you were saying about your results with the white pieces, like, I had a period in 2013 where with black, I had a performance over the course of the year of like 2,600 with black, but with white, it was really bad. It was almost like it was like 2,250, like barely 2,300.
Mhm.
And I was trying to square that up. And, Grandmaster Dmitry Gurevich, he said something like, it's very easy to get in trouble with white, because if you want
Right.
to be ambitious, like it's like trying to, do too much with your serve in tennis.
Yeah, I
or
like
something
that.
And Kamsky, by the way he got involved with the London system was he basically, again, had like disastrous results as white for like some of the reasons we're talking about. And so his dad asked him, well, maybe since you can't play the white pieces at all, think about certain positions that you like with blacks. So he played the Lasker defense to the ready. So like knight f3, d5, g3,
Yep.
like this type of ready, but with c6, bishop f5. So essentially reverse London.
Right.
He played that very well, and so he decided to develop that as white. That's definitely one thing.
Nice. So then what should I do, Gopal?
You should bite the bullet and play the open Sicilian.
I will. I swear, I will. It's the next on my list to conquer. It really
What
is.
do you currently play, Julie?
Against the Sicilian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I am currently trying to play more opens. JJ had sent me some stuff on 2A3 that Gopal's making fun of me for, but I kind of like it.
No, I probably showed him the idea.
Yeah, that's probably true. And before that, Pete, I was mostly playing. I liked C3, but I kind of played a delayed Alapin. So I would put my knight on F3 first, kind of see how black played it, and then play C3.
Even though
And
you still play C3 anyway.
Yeah.
no matter what.
I know. Well, the reason that I started playing that, I don't know if I want to say this, but I'll say it. I started playing that because that is something that Daniel Naroditsky plays a lot. And I grew up on Danya's Twitch stream. So,
But usually, like knight f3, e6, c3, right? Or would you do it knight f3, d6 as well?
yeah, I don't know. It kind of depends. I mean, it's nice that you can wait and see what black plays and see how you respond. So, yeah, but I mean, sometimes, yeah.
Because like these days, it was like when I was in high school, like a young whippersnapper, like knight f3, knight c6, c3 was rather popular.
Okay.
And it's getting popular now as people are seeking alternatives to going into the Sveshnikov, for example. And then
Yeah.
knight f3, e6, c3, super topical again.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were always the two cases where you'd see people like kind of like make their exception for a c3.
Yeah, JJ tried to sell me on the Sveshnikov as well. And we had some funny games. And I really did try to give it a go, but those structures feel so non-intuitive to me.
It's too rigid, I think.
Yeah, I had a really hard time. I never felt like that really gelled with my style. I had a lot of trouble with it.
I recommend to people often to develop like some sort of opening philosophy, like that's more concept based and not based necessarily on lines.
I
so
feel
not,
like
married to
yeah.
something. But
I feel like Gopal, I've just within the last couple of months even have finally started really doing that and kind of figuring out, okay, here's how to articulate what I kind of like and what really is my style.
Right, exactly. Like, I think, for instance, we might be kindred spirits in the sense that, like, I always prefer to have a very flexible pawn structure. So, like, naturally, I've preferred those small centers like e6, d6, like in the Scheveningen, the Taimanov, the Khan, or, maybe it's because
love the Khan.
I'm a verse or power bottom.
We're hedgehog girls.
Yes.
Totally. And it's just weird things that I don't even know why I gravitate towards it. It's just kind of realizing that when I get these positions, I feel happy. And in other positions, I feel more lost. But I realize I really like kingside pushes and I just love to push my F pawn. There's these things that for some reason call out to me. So I need to just develop a play style that lets me do that appropriately and not inappropriately.
It's interesting because like one thing that I think about is like the more that I've improved, the more I recognize how it's important to recognize where you're comfortable in a game. Like what sort of things you're present in a game that you're comfortable with and that you feel like I understand this and I can play it well. Mm-hmm. But it's equally important like not to play only to your style or too much to your style. Like you have to have a degree of like amorphousness to your game. You have to be able to. Sometimes the position calls for playing a structure you're not comfortable with, or sometimes the position calls for things that you may not feel are your wheelhouse per se.
You fight the position.
Of course.
You have to do what it wants.
Exactly. And I think a lot of players, like adult regressors, a lot of adult regressors get into this mode where they're too concerned with like style or something like that instead of just, what does the position call for?
Right. They have some sort of like weird false narrative too connected with that.
Right.
Like, I'm an aggressive player. I don't play boring. Well, you often find like, okay, so are you?
Depends on the position.
Like,
you might have to.
Car every single game. Like, you might have to. That's not all that chess is, right?
And
one of my favorite.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No, you go.
I was just going to say it's also interesting to see what people sort of consider to be aggressive, because I feel like in the online space, it's always trying to find a sharp tactic or making these exchanges. And we've talked about this on our podcast as well. And it's really interesting when you look at grandmaster games and different players who have considered themselves to be really aggressive. It actually can be this really slow positional grind that just kind of chokes out the other player and takes away all of their space or all of their options. So it doesn't feel kind of emotionally aggressive in that way that the tactics feel, but it's actually like very aggressive.
Yeah. Position.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, so to me, it almost reflects sort of like an immaturity in a play style to hear to hear people say, oh, I'm really aggressive. I love exchanges and this and that. And it's like, what are you doing? This is just bad chess.
What do you mean? Like players below 2000 with bad takes? Like I've never heard of that.
No, this would just hypothetically go, Paul. Like if someone were to do that,
right. Exactly,
I haven't seen it either. Yeah.
Me neither.
So that's interesting because, is it some sort of human need to like categorize yourself or like fit into some descriptor, right? Because why do we do that? On the surface, you would think, okay, here's a board game. Like we need to understand, how to play the board game and the truth behind it. We need to understand how to approach it when different things appear, right? Different configurations. If you think about it from like a purely like mathematical, like almost sterile perspective, you would just think like, okay, because of the nature of this board game, there are different configurations that could occur where I would have to play in different ways or like manners. But
no, those are boring.
Yeah. So why do we have this need to categorize them or to like add descriptors to them? That seems a little strange to me, doesn't it?
I think it's largely because, okay, a lot of people are going to do that because, they don't see the intricacies nor can they appreciate it, right? Like these types of quote unquote boring positions do have their own very placid beauty. And like, to outplay someone from nothing is really just, it's kind of a beautiful thing. But also, to like, could it be something to like protect one's ego? Like kind of like what we were just saying, but also as a means of dunking on their opponent. Like, oh, my opponent just, did that. Like they bored me to death, or like, oh, I hate playing them. They're so dang boring,
Yeah, Gopal, I can see that. I also just feel like it's kind of human nature, right? We all sort of do this in life in general outside of chess. Like we're all kind of asking the question, who am I? And in a way it might actually...
And why are we like this?
Why are we like this, right? So in general, we like categories, we like labels, we like things that appeal to our sense of self. So I think just in terms of, generally... human nature, it does kind of make sense to me, I think.
It's interesting, I think, because that's one of the things that is appealing to me about chess or like attractive about chess is that it doesn't fit neatly into like a box, right? In a lot of ways, like there are lots of different positions or manners of playing or styles, however you want to call it. But also, there's the famous quote, chess is both fight and sport and competition and science and art and all this other stuff, right? Like as a concept even, moving beyond the gameplay and the game itself, like as a concept, it doesn't fit neatly into one box. And that's one of the things that I find most appealing about chess. So I'm always fascinated when people like try to fit parts of it into different boxes because to me, that kind of goes against the grain a bit in terms of what is appealing about it.
Even though the intention is maybe to try to like understand it by categorizing it, which I think is like a very classic mistake with less experienced players, like, this over classification, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Gopal, it's funny that you say that because the podcast episode that we just released today, we talk about that exact concept, the way that these categories or these heuristics are really helpful when you're first learning how to play chess. And they can be helpful even when you become better or even an expert at chess. But you can't get really good until you start to be able to just look at the board in front of you and contextualize when those heuristics are actually helpful. So it really is kind of finding that balance of how much do I want to categorize versus how much nuance do I need to look at a position and say, okay, this is actually an exception to a rule that I've learned, or there's some difference in the position that makes that pattern recognition that I have applicable or not applicable. And I think a lot of people don't quite get there.
I'll say this, like when I was even when I was like 2000, just like when I was younger, I was always in search of like a perfect system for playing chess. Like there was a crazy book I've maybe mentioned on a few podcasts called Best Move or something like that by Alexander Sashin. It's like an algorithm. It really like crackpot stuff, to to try to find the best move. And it's like all this like mathematical formulas, and he doesn't even really explain where he's coming up with some of this from. But the examples are interesting. And like, I mean, the best one that I've seen was Dorfman's means of assessing a position, discussed in The Critical Moment and the Method in Chess. He is assessing a position based on like king position, material correlations. That's not material balance, but like, who, like, let's say pair of bishops versus two knights or something like that. Who has a better position after the exchange of queens, and I mean some other stuff. But these things are not like what it took me a long time to realize is that these things are not the final word or anything like that, but they're just kind of tools to guide you, to assist you when you're lost. And like, especially because like there's more talks of systems in the pool world, because everybody wants like a perfect aiming system. But when the pressure is high, you don't need an aiming system. You need a delivery system. So, when the pressure is high, these systems are good tools. Just sometimes, like, a lot of stuff out there is not really that good. But
to me, it almost provides you a starting point, right? So if we even think about, like as an academic in scientific research, it's more of like a hypothesis. Like, hey, here's an idea that might work. You still have to test it, like calculate a little bit, see if it works. You can't really use them blindly. You're going to run into a lot of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% to blindly apply them, especially in your line of work. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Laughs uncomfortably.
Truly.
It's interesting. So I have been very, very, very slowly working on a chess book, and one of the things that I did to kind of help frame it is I rewrote the introduction like several times, and each time I felt like I got like a little clearer picture of what I was trying to go for. And the word that kept coming up was synthesis. And the idea is like how do you put these things together? How do you synthesize your knowledge and experience into like actually being able to play this very complex game, right? And part of that, I think, you guys kind of hit it on the head, is you have to be able to test, you have to get that feedback. You have to be able to like do and receive feedback on it. It's very hard to just like in a vacuum improve, right? You have to actually have a feedback loop or whatever they call it.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like that's why, especially for people who are closer to the beginner stage of chess, gravitate so much towards opening prep and studying openings, because you almost don't have to do that really deep critical thinking and the trial and error and the test and read test. It feels more concrete, right? You can learn the lines in your lead chess study or on Chessable, and you don't have to really dig too deep.
Right. It's the most tangible form of chess improvement, because that's something you can like use today. And yeah, like you said, you don't have to do any critical thinking.
That's interesting, because students are always super confused why I don't want to work on openings with them. It's like, there's so much more important things to know right now. At your level, you don't need to be memorizing 30 lines of theory or 30 moves of theory, but I'm like always equally confused, like why they would even want to do that. Like,
or maybe
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but Pete, it makes perfect sense to me.
No, yeah, the way you described it, that makes sense. Like, I finally have an explanation. I can kind of understand to some degree, like why is this even appealing? Like, why does this seem like something you should be doing right now?
It takes out so much of the uncertainty. It makes people feel big brain, right? I can memorize 30 lines of theory. I can memorize 20 moves out in this variation. I mean, who cares that I'll never see this variation and it's not actually helpful? But when I click through my Chessable, feels good, right? So they're getting that little dopamine hit, if nothing else.
Right. Like that's another thing I think about is, in sports, let's say, like you learn a new move, right? You can go test that out in the very next game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
An example that comes to mind is like a soccer way of the step over, or the Cruyff or whatever it's called. But in chess, like, you might learn 20 moves of theory and you might not have a chance to use that for like 8 tournaments, because nobody's cooperating and playing into it. So it's like a weird way of learning these techniques and applying them. And also, you might just show up and the dude plays like Queen D3 on move 2.
I know, that's what you should be doing with your students, Pete. I was thinking, just teach them the Wayne method and say, until you get a grasp on that, we're not learning any theory.
Don't do that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, but then they run into something like D4, B6, Queen D3, Bishop A6, and then
Oh, and then they're like control.
and then they like have
E4.
they have like some kind of weird like meltdown. I don't know. My queen is under attack.
Pete, just so you know, I do have to leave. I have a patient at 4:30.
Unacceptable. Their patient will be fine.
All right, let's start the final part. Or
Yeah, sure. Julie, do you have time to do a 24-game chess match with us between the dude and Ricky Bobby?
Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So this is a segment we've done every month for the past few months. We basically just have 2 hypothetical players, as if these players could learn and play chess, which in some cases, for example, we had Michael Scott as one of the participants. It wasn't entirely clear that he would be successful learning the game and playing a match, or at least finishing the match.
right.
So today's matchup was suggested by one of Gopal's students. So Gopal, you want to drop us in here?
Yeah. So Dr. Skull.
Great name.
Dr. Kevin Skull. Yes, absolutely. He suggested to us a 24-game match between what is it? Also an enemy of the podcast, by the way. He has his own podcast, Chess Improvement Journeys. But anyway, so the matchup was the dude from The Big Lebowski versus Ricky Bobby from Talladega Nights.
So Julia, gut instinct, take it away. Who wins? 24-game match.
The dude.
Oh, no hesitation. The dude.
Ugh.
Okay. You have no concerns over the dude. Maybe, I don't know, being a little lazy, not necessarily like preparing a whole bunch.
I have a lot of concerns.
Like missing the round because he shows up over an hour late. You're not worried about that?
No, I'm very, very worried about that.
But you're taking him anyway. Why?
Yeah, for sure. All these concerns that you're bringing up, Pete, about how the dude might kind of underperform and not be trying hard enough. I think it's clear that Ricky Bobby will be trying way too hard and going too fast. He will burn out. It will be a self-sabotage.
Okay, interesting. So the deficits that the dude may possess might cost him a round or two here or there. But because of the format, the 24-game format,
Yes.
we think long-term he will manage to do just enough to overcome his deficits and show up just enough times to let Ricky Bobby sort of burn himself out, hang himself, let's say.
I think in general, it kind of just reflects a chess philosophy that I have, which is really do less. I think trying to do too much on the board when you're new to the sport, if you will, is a recipe for disaster. Ricky Bobby is going to be trying to play Queen H5, and we're going to run into trouble.
That's a good point. He probably would go for stuff like that.
He's going to play the fried liver every chance he gets. We know that.
Even when it doesn't, like E4, E6,
Knight F3,
D5,
Bishop
oh,
C4.
snap, what do I do here? So would you say it would be a case of, I mean, because we didn't talk about the margin of victory necessarily. Like, would you say it would be a case of the dude limping over the finishing line, or is he like, going to bust down that front door and take it like that?
I don't know. Pete, what do you think?
I'm honestly deciding whether or not I'm taking the dude. Gopal, I want to get you on the record. Are you taking the dude in this matchup?
No. Jesus.
I didn't think so. I'm like
horrible.
kind of on the fence. So I wanted to get Gopal on the record. You're taking Ricky Bobby?
Yeah, dude, this movie the dude
here's something I think that is kind of in the dude's favor. Like, the dude has this very like bohemian lifestyle, right? He's kind of just like he's the dude, right? And chess is definitely a game that kind of fits that lifestyle, right? Like I could see, if you think about like the dude's apartment, I could see him having like a chess set up somewhere, maybe with like a correspondence position on it or something. Like it's within the range of outcomes that the dude learned chess at some point in his life and maybe plays it from time to time while enjoying a beverage, let's say.
Let's say. Another thing in the dude's favor that you're forgetting, Pete, is that Ricky Bobby is an idiot.
Yeah, that's kind of the elephant in the room, right? Like, that's a good point. But he does have some competitive experience. So, like, he knows what,
Very
there's something to be said. Yeah,
Sure.
There's something to be said for, I guess I don't know too much about car racing, but it seems like an individually competitive sport, right? Like where you're the driver. I know you have a team and you have like the dudes that like change your wheels. And this shows how little I know about car racing. But generally speaking, like when you're doing the thing, you're the only person doing the thing, right? You're not like passing the car to somebody else. Like you're the driver. You're the one who's doing it. And chess is kind of very similar. Like you're the driver, right? Like you're behind the wheel. So there's some kind of like individual competitive aspect that might transfer. That's kind of what I'm thinking about how I'm thinking about this matchup. I think I lean the dude, but only slightly. Like I would give him like maybe in a 24 game match, it would be decided on like game 23, right? Because dude would have like a couple forfeits here and there for no show. So I would go something like, what would that be, like 11 and a half, 10 and a half or something? I don't know. Does that add up to 20? That's 20.
Yeah. He's going to, maybe not necessarily limp over the finish
That's not even
line,
more than 12. So yeah, it would be like 12 and a half, 10 or something.
Yeah, maybe stagger over the line, go Paul.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so. If I had to choose, between an underachiever and a pseudo overachieving moron, I think I'm with you, Pete. I'm not putting my eggs in Ricky Bobby's basket.
Is anyone?
Go Paul.
I mean, I will, because
Go Paul will drop those eggs right in Ricky Bobby.
In fact, I hate this movie so much that I actually came up with another 24 game match. If we could do this one on the fly. And
okay.
Okay, so this will be quick. And
okay, so just for the record, 2-1 the dude.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, but mine is mostly out of spite, so don't
understood.
My opinion.
Yeah. Because you hate Talladega Nights, go Paul?
No, because I hate what is it?
The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The Great Lebowski.
You know what though? That did have, what was that actor's name who I really like? Was it like Philip K. Wilson or whoever?
Jason Statham.
No. That's not who I'm thinking of. You know who I'm thinking of, right? Is that his name? Is it? I've got to Google this. Go Paul, with your matchup.
Vin Diesel.
Philip K. Dick. Is that his name?
No, that's the author.
No,
Yeah.
I do have two authors actually. So
I can't wait.
These are the first two that just came to mind. Charles Bukowski versus Oscar Wilde.
Oh, Oscar Wilde.
4-game match.
Sorry, am I supposed to think about it?
Oscar
Wilde.
That's okay. That's legit. I don't know what I'm supposed to think.
To me, this feels like, okay, Bukowski is like the guy who thinks he would be really good at chess, right? Because he has the aesthetic and he's the beatnik and he has the bohemian style and he's all brooding and smokes his cigarettes. And yeah, I would be so intellectual. I would be good at chess. And that's just not enough. And in fact, I think it's a hindrance. He would just expect to be good at it. And I don't think he has the raw intellect. Oscar Wilde is an artist. Come on. This man has some real flair. No competition.
That's true. But I mean, we have to think about this in terms of the opening theory. Like I'm looking at the timeline of his life, right? 1854 to 1900. This is kind of like near I believe the tail end of Morphy's career, if you know, and then like, I think he died the same year that Steinitz did. So he really did see a lot in terms of the revolution of chess understanding, like through the time of.
Yeah, he would have some of Steinitz's theories, so that might be enough.
I mean, for
Right.
all we know, Oscar Wilde would be sleeping with Paul Morphy and have the best second you can imagine.
So first of all,
Game
Philip
over.
Seymour Hoffman was who I was thinking of.
True.
Pete.
I had to look that up. I love him. I think he's a great actor. Was a great actor. But I would take Wilde too, and I think Julia hit the nail right on the head. It's so hard to get better at chess when you have like expectations about how something is or should go. I think one of the most difficult challenges as a chess teacher is if you have a student who has developed like bad habits over a period of time, because the first thing you have to do is you have to like assess those and help them like recognize them. And it can be a huge hindrance to learning if they keep falling into the same bad habits or allowing the same expectations to sort of like get in the way of like real improvement.
And I imagine that's even more difficult, Pete, when there's ego involved. Like,
right. And then when you couple that with like yeah, exactly.
But I don't know, like it's like Bukowski has a certain wittiness, right? It's definitely different than like Oscar Wilde, but I would say it's also, definitely a stark contrast to who I think would be Bukowski's second during the match, one Mikhail Tal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if Tal agrees to that, then I guess that's makes it a very formidable team.
This is the thing. I mean, like Bukowski, born 1920, died 1994. I mean, you have to think like this guy. He saw like the hyper modern era, or like he's whatever. He has that information, and then like Botvinnik, Fischer, and like there's so many interesting changes that went on. He even saw the Fischer Spassky match from 1992,
Right.
So with Tal as a second man, I don't know that, like, don't underestimate that, but like you kind of get this feeling, right, that Oscar Wilde would work pretty hard at the board.
What are the odds that this match devolves into some kind of like physical altercation at some point?
It depends. Are they going through a sober phase or?
I mean, I don't think we can know, right? So that's sort of part of the equation.
And if we had to predict, the answer for both of them is probably no. So I actually think the odds of a physical altercation are relatively high.
Right.
Tempers flaring.
So maybe the result of this is like some kind of like adjourned 24 game match due to
it could be like the sequel to Illusion Defense.
They both need to get bailed out to finish the match.
Exactly.
Okay. Are we going on record with an official pick, or are we just going with that?
I always go with
unclear.
my gut.
Yeah. So you guys seem like pretty heavy on Wilde. I mean, I kind of want to agree, but with Tal as Bukowski's second, like I am going to say Bukowski just because of that. Again, it's not even anything.
What makes you
objective.
think that Tal would ever agree to be this degenerate second?
I mean, their interests, their mutual interests, right? Like, what was that famous Tal quote? Like, I drink, I smoke, I chase women, but postal chess is one vice that I don't have, or something like that. I feel like that's something that you could easily hear from Henry Charles Bukowski.
I could see that.
That's like the only reason why I think, in fact,
I just
like
see his ego getting in the way.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like
sure.
Julia for sure is coming down on the Wild side, right?
Big time.
Take a walk on the Wild side. Go, Paul. Where are you at?
I'm gonna take a walk on the bumpy side if I'm referring to Bukowski due to the warts that he had on his face throughout his life. So yeah, I'm gonna go with him for the reasons stated earlier.
So this is a really difficult one for me because I actually 100% agree with Julia's analysis for the reasons already stated. However, I think back to a previous matchup we had on the show, Julia, where we did the Terminator up against John Wick.
Oh,
and one of the things, that was a fun one. One of the things that we kind of allowed into play there was the Terminator's sort of futuristic knowledge and access to machines and computers.
Okay.
And so even though I think both of our hearts were with Wick, I think we ultimately decided he would have the edge because of that advantage. And Gopal's right, it's pretty hard to ignore basically a century's worth of like chess advancement and improvement that Bukowski would have access to.
But we also have to remember that he would have to utilize that technology and be motivated and disciplined and really put in the hours to utilize it. This was someone who was drinking very heavily. I'm not convinced.
I mean, with Michael Tal, like, you know, I'm sure he can probably snap him out of a bender or like show him at least how to do it properly.
It's tough. I mean, I like I said, I completely agree with Julia's analysis. But I think one of the themes that I think is sort of flowing through these matchups when we discuss them is like the power or the advantage that having access to newer information presents.
Sure.
So that's what makes this a really difficult one for me. I mean, how focused would he have to be to actually make this a realistic, tangible edge in a match? That's a very good point. That's a good question. I think I slightly lean Bukowski just because of that, but it's very close for me.
All right. It's too bad we'll never know.
We'll never know. I know.
I really think you guys would be embarrassed when my wild side.
You know what we need? Do you ever see the show Futurama? You ever see that show?
Yeah.
You know how they had like all the heads preserved in the glass with like the name?
Oh man.
That's what we need.
We need that
case
of 24 gauge.
Yeah, we do need that.
We need that technology.
We would also need the time travel technology to get the heads, but
minor detail. That's
small minor inconveniences.
And of course, once we have all this great technology, there is no better use for it than going back in time
to answer these questions,
grabbing these random people throughout history and forcing them to play chess against each other, whether they like it or not. Well, Julia, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for coming and talking with us. I'm so glad we answered all of these very important questions, like what to do with your Stouffer's lasagna.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was the best. You guys are the coolest.
So, for Gopal Menon and Julia Rios, this is your host, Pete Karianis, on the Chess Underground. Julia, this has been awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Love you. Bye.
To define.
Thank you for listening to the Chess Underground, a US chess podcast. Please check out our entire suite of podcasts, which release every Tuesday, and include Ladies' Night with Jen Shahad, as well as Chess Life cover stories and One Move at a Time with Dan Lucas. US Chess would like to thank Jason Andre at 7 Season Films Photography and Media for our podcast production and editing. If you are starting your own podcast, visit www.7seasonfilms.com for consulting, production, and editing. Until next time, signing off, Pete Karianis.